What is up, everybody? Welcome to another phenomenal, stellar, amazing, wonderful episode of the Vegans Who Live podcast. We have your favorite vegan hosts ever, Brooke Sellers, aka Miss Meatless Muscle, and John Thomas, aka the Bodybuilding Vegan. Brooke, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Ready to talk about preventing injuries. Fun stuff.
Fun stuff. If you're injured and listening to this, I want to give you a big hug. I'll give myself some hugs. Actually, I'm not really, knock on some wood, dealing with any injuries right now. How about you?
Good.
Are you?
You know, I don't know. I'll say no. I have this lingering low back issue, but I've had that for probably years since I was like 21. So I have to manage that, but it's probably just some sort of disc degeneration. I would imagine. I've never had an MRI, so I don't know if it's a bulging disc. I don't know, but it's probably just some sort of disc issue. So I feel like I'll always have it. I'll just have to baby it a little bit here and there sometimes. But no like active injuries like torn rotator cuffs or pulled hamstrings or anything like that. Thank goodness. I haven't had one of those in a long time.
Thank goodness. I'm glad to hear that. Some dude was trying to tell me at the gym, and maybe this would work for you for that disc issue. If you went carnivore for a little bit, it might help heal it.
Wow. Did somebody really say that?
No, but this guy did stop me at the gym and he's like, "Oh, you're vegan?" I was like, "Yeah, you want to have a conversation?" And he's like, "Yeah, you should go carnivore. I've done it for 4 months and I've lost every ailment that's known to man. I lost ailments that I didn't even know I had, and I feel great." And I said, "Oh." And he's like, "Yeah, so how's that work out for you?" I was like, "You're looking at it." And he's like, "Well, I just eat meat. That's it. Nothing else." And I said, "No fruits, no vegetables?" He's like, "Nope. Got to stay away from those oxalates." And I'm like, "Yep, you're going to have a heart attack." So, yeah, meat's not always the answer. I'd say rarely the answer, if ever the answer. Anywho, I wonder how we can tie this into veganism. I already have some thoughts, but I think this will also just be a good general education episode. But glad to hear you're not dealing with any injuries. And I, at the current moment, as of recording this podcast, I swear, sometimes I'm at the gym and I'm like, goal today is just don't get hurt. I don't care what you do. Just make sure you can walk out on your own 2 legs.
Do you get injured often?
I've had 3 significant setbacks this year. Yeah. I can get into what caused them and how I could have prevented them. But of course, I'm only remembering 2 of them right now when I need to most remember them on this podcast. But I injured my left adductor early on in the year. And that was from doing single leg press. And I went a little too deep on a rep. And I wasn't going like crazy heavy. Like this was a set of 16. It was like the 15th rep that did it. And I went too deep for where I was strong and basically like pulled my adductor. And for 3 months, using it at all, like to get in and out of the car would hurt. So I got a whole story there for that. And then most recent, I had popped my hamstring, and that was a major, almost pain in the ass, very close to the ass, but a major pain. And again, I think I have some ways that I could have prevented that through smarter training. And that's really where I'm at. Like I'll say I'm relatively strong. And so anytime that I pick up relatively heavy weights for myself, there's a bit more of a chance for injury. If you're a brand new person, you really shouldn't be getting injured because you probably just shouldn't be moving that much weight. But yeah, I think I've had 3 injuries this year. Those are the 2 coming to mind. Wow, major brain. It's been a long day already. But yeah, I don't know. We don't have a script for this. We did not script this at all, and that's okay.
Nope. We're just gonna throw out some advice here and there. But yeah, injuries can suck. I mean, I definitely, I don't know if I'd call this an injury, but I did drop a plate on my foot, and I know you dropped a plate on your foot too. Maybe was that the one you were thinking of? That's
the one I forgot.
Yeah. There we go.
Because it wasn't during a lift; it was in between a lift. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah, I know. So I'm like, is that technically an injury? I guess in a way. I don't know. But yeah, so like for me, like that was the most recent injury I had. And God, that was probably 2 years ago. That was the last time I was in prep, my first prep. And I was 10 weeks out and I broke my foot, but I still, worked around it. I still trained and, I did cardio. I just changed my cardio. So like you could definitely work around an injury. I think that's the worst thing is like when people get injured and then they're like, oh my God, like I can't, reach my goals now. And I just got started. And it's like, well, most of your results are going to be on nutrition anyway. So this is a great time to really hone in on your nutrition. And almost every single injury you can work around. Like I even had a client who she had some crazy spinal surgery, which it seemed like it would be extremely restrictive, but she was back in the gym in like 6 weeks. And, it was like very specific. We only did like machines. We didn't do any free weights, but still, you don't have to be limited when you're injured. You can still make progress.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I feel like you bodybuild long enough and it's not how are you injury free, it's how are you working around your injuries to an extent. There's just some movements I just won't do anymore. Like a flat barbell bench press. I don't think I've done one of those in like 2 years. I used to be pretty strong at them up to like 4 plates, but why? The power say it's not if, but when you get a pec tear, and I'm not trying to have one of those because that's a pretty major setback. And so kind of what you're saying, you can usually work around stuff. Now, if you're 2 weeks out from a show and you break your spine, I'd probably say pull out of the show. But if you drop a plate on your foot 2 weeks out,
you keep going.
Yeah. I guess it depends how bad. I watched somebody X-ray and like he shattered his foot. Not good. Not good. And we've had like 5 people in my gym do it. There's something cursed about MI40.
Oh my gosh. I feel like it happens to everybody eventually. It's just one of those things. And like sometimes you're just lucky. Like one day I got lucky and I dropped a 10-pound on my foot and I like kind of had like PTSD from the last time I dropped a plate on my foot, but I was like, whew, okay, it was just a 10. Like we're good. It still hurt like hell, but I was like, okay, I'm not gonna, not be able to walk for a long time. Because last time I was taking off a 45 off of a hip thrust and it was just kind of a weird angle. It was really, really low. And I just dropped it right on my foot and it was like, oh God, it was terrible. Terrible.
Yeah. I feel like you have those once a month and then I call like once a decades. Once a month is when you walk your head into the cabinet and you'll remember that for about a month and you'll put it back, you'll close the cabinet and then a month later you go hit yourself in the head again. But like the plate, I'm terrified now. I'm terrified.
One time, that's all it takes.
I was trying to work in between sets. And so I was like replying to clients and watching form videos. And then I thought I was done. I think I like unracked one side of a machine. And then I went and watched the video and I was like, all right, I'll rest and then go unrack the other side and move on. And I went to go up top to pull the 45 off the very top about like eye level. Even though it's at my eyes, I was just mentally not there. And I pulled the 25 along with the 45 and the 25 fell right on my foot. So yeah, that was an injury that could have been avoided just by a little bit of common sense. Now I kind of like a blind person. I feel the weights and make sure I have them carefully. And I move my feet out from under myself. I just never get.
Yeah, never. But I think you make a good point too. And I think that's like one thing that people should take into account when they're trying to prevent injuries is just like knowing your limits too. Like, there's certain movements you just won't do. And I'm the same way. Like people might be shocked to hear this, but I don't ever do barbell back squats. I can't remember the last time I did a barbell back squat. They just do not work for me. Like I can work on my form. I can do all sorts of mobility stuff before, after, no matter what. The next day I'm feeling it in my low back. And it's just like, why? When I could just do it on a hack squat. So like if I do it on a hack squat, I have that support on my low back. I have hardly any issues unless I just go crazy hitting PRs. Or, if I do a Smith squat where it's like on a fixed plane, I can really control, like how my body's moving. And I feel like it's so much better for my body. And so why would I put myself in a position to get injured, when there's better alternatives? And like you can still build your legs without doing squats. And like same thing with your chest. Like you still build pecs without doing a flat. bench press. So I think that's important too. If something doesn't feel right to you, just don't do it, because there's so many good exercises. You could find something better.
100%. I agree with you so much there. I think having that understanding of how your body works and how it's kind of like a roadmap. Like if I want to go from Florida to California, there's a lot of different roads I could take. I could squat, which in this analogy would be crawling backwards on my hands and knees. Or I could get on the hack squat machine, which is like a car, and drive there. And I get into this a lot with new clients. Like they'll be like, but I heard, everybody told me I have to squat and bench because that's the best way. The thing is, you're much more likely to get injured, like we've just covered. And for somebody new learning the movements, it's a lot easier to focus on the movement pattern with a fixed position of a machine, even a Smith squat versus a regular squat. And for someone advanced like yourself and myself that knows how to push really hard, I just go in there and I contract the hell out of my muscles. I push hard. I don't have to worry so much about that balance. So I agree. It's funny. I've completely changed stances. When I first started, I thought squats is the best way to go. You want to build legs, you squat. But nah. I for the majority, unless they're a power lifter, I don't really say let's squat. If it's part of your sport, you need to. But otherwise, you don't need to.
Yeah. Warm up. Yeah. Do you want to talk about warm ups? What's your warm up? What do you do?
I will. Yes. Real quick, since I'm on mobile. If not, just the chat, just let me know because I can't see.
Okay.
Warm ups. I have differing thoughts. I definitely am not opposed to clients that like to go in and get on the bike or the treadmill for 5 or 10 minutes. Don't want people doing like a whole half-hour cardio session or like hit training first. That kind of is low-hanging fruit. Most people should know that, but if you don't, now you do. And then I don't do intense stretching. I was actually just talking to somebody about that yesterday. They asked me like, why didn't we stretch before our lift? And I'm like, well, you don't want to like really, really, really get into like some deep stretches prior to training, because that exposes you by opening up your range of motion into areas that you don't normally have access to. I'll get more into that later. So I warm up. I usually just go to the machine that I'm going to use. Like if I start with leg curls, and let's say my working set is like an arbitrary number of like 200 pounds for 10 reps. I'll do 50 pounds for 15 reps, do 100 pounds for 12 reps. I do 150 for 8 reps, 5 reps. Maybe I'll even do like 175 for just one, make sure it feels good. And then I'll go into my working sets. That's usually how I do things. And then I kind of carry that forward to every exercise going forward. If I go into pendulums right after that, like yesterday, I did 2 plates for a few reps. 4 plates for a few reps, 5 plates for a few reps. And then my first set was with 6 plates. That way I'm not, if something's wrong with my knee or if a muscle is tight, I don't just jump right into the top weight. And that's actually how I ended up popping my hamstring. Is I didn't warm up enough. I was being lazy. I didn't want to have to unrack all the weights. So I jumped right into 200-pound dumbbell RDLs and pop goes the weasel. But anyways, that's how I do it. I usually just use the exercise I'm going to use and kind of lean into it that way. How about you?
Pretty much the same, except for I do a 10-minute walk on either the treadmill or the elliptical before upper body days. I like to like get my arms pumping a little bit. But yeah, I would never do more than 10 minutes, because if I do more than that, it definitely impacts my workout. I don't know how people do that. And I've had people people say, oh, I do 25 minutes of Stairmasters before I hit legs. And I'm like, why? Why would you do that? Yeah. It's crazy to me. I would just literally want to go home after that. But so I do 10-minute cardio, light cardio. And then I will go to my first exercise, which usually is going to be some sort of isolation movement. Like if it's a leg day, it's going to be like a leg curl or something. So again, it's like I'm less likely to get injured on a leg curl than if I'm like, let me just go ahead and jump into my barbell hip thrust or my, dumbbell RDLs. Like I'm definitely pulling a hamstring if I go straight to the dumbbell RDLs. So I always start with like some sort of isolation movement, start really light and just work up until my working weight, and maybe 3 sets at most. Usually by then I'm ready to go, and then I'm pretty much good for the rest of my workout. So yeah, pretty much the same, a little bit.
Yeah. I think it's somewhat intuitive. You kind of pick it up over time.
Yes. No stretching for me either, though, because like you said, my lifts are never as good if I stretch before. And same thing, I always feel like I'm going to get injured if I do too many deep stretching sessions before, because it just makes you so much more like limber, which it can be a good thing, but again, it's like if you're trying to like kind of match your weight from the week before, you want to stay as consistent as possible, especially if you're incorporating progressive overload. So I don't know, changing too many things, that's when you have that risk for injury, when you start adding in new stuff and doing a bunch of different things.
Yeah, if you're going to stretch, a great time is post-workout.
Oh yeah.
Because your muscles will get tight. By stretching, you can still get some additional blood flow, and that's kind of how our bodies heal themselves. Is the inflammation after the training, your body's already ready to send in fresh blood. If you get a post-workout shake or a post-workout meal, they're ready to send that in. So stretching post-workout is great. I also, like for me, I do my mobility work in the morning. I found if I don't get up and do it first thing, it just doesn't happen. But if I stretch at like 8 a.m. and then I train at noon or 2 p.m., that's plenty of time to like be back to normal tightness levels, I guess. Yeah, you just like last thing you want to be doing, in my opinion, is like getting on the adductor machine, training the inner thighs, and like really hammering some deep lunges and like adductor stretches, and then get on there. That's probably going to be a chance for injury for most people. Yeah, so I'll dive into that. That one way to prevent injury. We can start with preventing, and then we can go to, I guess, like rehabbing injuries that we've gone through, we've had for clients. So for me, the first injury I had this year was my left adductor, and it actually didn't happen on the adductor machine. It happened doing a single leg press. And what I found out was my coach is really big on depth, which is great. We definitely grow more in that stretched position, especially for things like calves. But I was trying to do super deep single leg presses, and I had been working up. It was a relatively new movement for me. I just kept adding weight each week, and I pushed from too deep of a spot to where, like, I view it as like you have an active range, and I don't know, for me, we'll say it was like a 2 feet range of motion where I could put myself there and move my leg in that weight, or in that range of motion, regardless of weight. Like where do I actually have true range of motion without forcing myself? And then I got to that point and I forced it a couple inches more. And once I forced it, that's when it popped. So I think kind of back to what you're saying earlier, like you don't want to change those variables. You don't want to add range of motion under load that you're not used to. So what could have prevented that for me, just knowing myself and not loading up extra plates on the machine and having the machine force me into a spot that I couldn't get into on my own. Yeah. Because you have, like, your muscles are used to firing in certain ranges of motion. If you take them past that, they might not be able to fire correctly. And then that's when you're going to get a pop or a tear, from what I've seen.
Yeah.
Have you had any, I know you mentioned the lower back, but that sounds more of just like a permanent thing. Was it a car crash or anything, or you just noticed it?
So that was an injury. So I was like 21, and I was ego lifting, like absolutely 100%. So that's another one. Do not ego lift. Like when we say, know your limits with your movements, know your limits with your weight. And at the time, I was kind of into that whole hardcore squat, bench, deadlift, and I was training hard 6-7 days a week. I was like working at this gym part-time. I was just way overtrained, and I was just lifting way too much weight, and I was doing sumo deadlifts, and I just ended up hurting my back. I don't know really exactly how it happened. I just know when I put the weight down, I was in so much pain. My boyfriend at the time, he had to carry me out of the gym, and I couldn't sit for a really long time or like stand from a sitting position. I had to go to physical therapy. It was bad. It was really bad. Like I had to just start with like body weight squats and work my way up. And ever since then, I've just never really been able to squat the same. So I just, yeah, I don't want to risk getting injured, and it's manageable. Like, if I, if I do the movements that I know work for my body, I can like pretty much be pain free. I would never say I'm not like 100% pain free all the time. But I would say most like 90% of the time. And I will also say what has helped me a ton. And I was shocked by this. This blew me away because it was really inexpensive, and it looks a lot like a foam roller, a yoga wheel. Allie may have one of those. That's she seems like she might would have one of those. But I had my posing coach tell me that I should get a yoga wheel so that it would help me with my posing, being able to like twist. So she was telling me to do it for that reason, but I was amazed at how much it improved my low back pain. I mean, it's like it's crazy. Well, like and I've tried everything. I've gone to chiropractors, I do the CBD, which never did shit for me. I don't like CBD, and just all sorts of stuff. I do stretch. I stretch every night. That's actually my nightly routine, not my morning routine for you. But the yoga wheel, if anyone is struggling with low back pain, because I know a lot of people do, get a yoga wheel. They're like $30 on Amazon, and you just lay like on your back on it and just roll around. And it sounds so simple, but it's incredible. And you'll just feel your spine like pop, 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 pop. It's awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And helps me move into the next spot. If you have any tightness, like maybe you had tightness in your lower back or in your glutes that you just didn't even recognize, but now you're rolling that out, it will take that tension and pressure off of your spine or your skeleton system that's probably going to be feeling like pain or feeling like tightness by kind of relaxing those muscles. So yeah, nightly routine, morning routine for stretching, either one is good, but then adding in like foam rolling or body work can be good too.
Oh, yes.
A good deep tissue massage person, they can work through some of the knots and work through the tightness. But I feel like most people aren't going to be able to do that 2 times a week or even once a week. But anybody can roller. So that's a low ticket value item right there.
I do love my foam roller too. Yeah, especially because I feel like your quads, like you can't really do much for your quads with the yoga wheel. It's more so just kind of like the foam roller is kind of like digging into your tissue more so, and the foam roller, it's just more so like stretching and like kind of lengthening out your muscles is what it feels like. So I love the foam roller for my quads, and I feel like that helps my low back too, because like you said, it's like everything works together. So I think sometimes people forget that. It's like, oh, I have low back pain, so that means that I need to, I don't know. Yeah, just stretch. But it's also like, no, you also need to strengthen your glutes. You need to strengthen your core. You need to strengthen your quads, because everything works together. And like you said, and that's something I did learn from the chiropractor, is like, if something else is tight, it's going to eventually cause issues somewhere else. So yeah, like making sure if you do have pain, if you do have an injury, the muscles around it are important too.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, if you have like back pain, it could be tight glutes. A lot of guys do a lot of benching, and I specifically mean guys. Like men are more likely to be super into benching than women, and they don't do any like rear delt work, and then they get shoulder injuries because the front of their delts, their chest, their front delts are really overdeveloped. They don't train rear delts, so that can happen to where they kind of just lean and they're hunched forward. Their posture can get worse. So realizing that your body is all interconnected. A big one for people like tennis elbow.
Yes.
It's probably like the most common quote unquote injury that people get. And that's usually from curling a lot. So if your palm is facing you, looking at myself to make sure I'm doing it right, your forearm flexors. So if your palm's facing you and you're curling, that would be the part of your forearm that you can see. If your flexors are really tight and then you flip your hand over and put your palm down, the extensors are on like the top of your arm. If those are weak, if you don't do any reverse curls, Then having weak extensors allows them to be kind of moved around and traveled. And then your very strong, overdeveloped flexors, they get tight. And so that tightness on the one side and the weakness on the other actually pulls on this like ligament that we have in our elbow and causes pain. So what you can do is you can strengthen your extensors. You can do reverse grip curls, or ladies or guys, borrow one from your girlfriend, get like a hair tie and just open your fingers. For those of you that are listening, I'm pretending I have a hair tie on my fingers. I'm opening my hand. That'll strengthen your extensors. And then you can just dig your thumb into your forearm flexors anytime you're at like a red light or traffic or in between sets. And that'll kind of break up some of that scar tissue, break up the tightness. And if you have like tennis elbow and that's the cause, which I'd say for about 3/4 of my clients, that fixes it in like 48 hours or less. So there's a lot to like understanding the body. That's, I think, why we're coaches. There's a lot of troubleshooting that goes into this. And I learned a lot through my own personal injuries, as it sounds like you have as well with the yoga wheel. I didn't even know about that. I haven't had that kind of an injury. I'm glad we're doing this. I feel like it'll help people.
I know a lot of people have injuries. A lot of people. I know a lot, like when I think about all my clients, I mean, a lot of people are coming to me for guidance because they really don't feel safe working out on their own because of things like tennis elbow or a disc issue or a shoulder issue. So a lot of the big common ones, and bad knees. I feel like that's so many people. I bet you have a ton of clients with bad knees.
I would even say sometimes I have bad knees.
Yeah.
I lift a lot of weight, but then that goes to, like, how can we help these people kind of not avoid working out, but avoid doing things that make their injuries worse. Back to the ego lifting thing. I feel like everybody ego lifts until they get hurt. And then the smart people stop ego lifting. And what I was going to say too, like people like Allie, she's got some lower back issues, but her, I think I was conflating. She's the one that was in the car crash. And so it's always been bad. And like when she does rear delt movements or like upper back movements, like a lat pull down, I'm her coach now. So I get to watch all her videos. When we first started, one arm would be way off from the other. And she didn't even realize how unbalanced she was. But the beauty of this is, as she continued to work, she got stronger and strengthened that side that was weaker. And now her form is much more even. So if you have an injury, you might even be able to help yourself by getting strong and building up strong muscles around it. Just be careful. Don't make it worse. Diving into a little bit more of like the rehab side of things. So for my adductor, when I messed it up, what I did to fix that was lots and lots of stretching in the morning with the goal of getting blood in there. And like, it would take me 5 minutes to get to where it was like kind of comfortable just to like open my legs. And it would hurt every day, but I would just keep kind of like not going through crazy pain, but through some pain, like work through it to where it didn't hurt. And I would do that every day. And then now when I do adductors in the gym, I do a warm-up set of 30. I add a little bit of weight. I do a warm-up set of like 25. I add a little bit of weight. I do a warm-up set of 20. And then I start doing my working sets, and they're usually 20 reps or higher. So it's like I go through almost 100 reps before doing something hard, and no injuries since doing that. I've injured it like 4 times over the last 5 years by just going in and not warming up on the adductor machine and going too hard, too fast. So knowing yourself there. And then for my hamstring, after that popped, I did a lot of research because I was like, I need to heal up. I need to heal up quick. I can't let this hold me back. And the biggest one that they said was continue to get blood flow and movement. So probably too much for the scope of this podcast, but there were very like movement in the sense of literally just sitting on the couch and flexing my hamstring. That was where it started. Like not even moving, just flexing, just telling it to fire, to keep firing. And then once I could do that, like it would be standing up and curling my one leg with no weight. Like, and I couldn't do that the day I got injured. I couldn't even just pick up my heel off the ground and curl. So then like the next few days, that was what I would do. And then I started finding other exercises where you could lay on the ground and kind of do like a modified hamstring curl on the ground. And over time, it took a while. it felt like it was never going to get better. But like a month later, it was a little better. Now it's been a couple months, and I'm back to where I might do RDLs again, but I'm still a little bit scared. So I feel like I'm getting really long-winded. I'll cut it off short. I've been doing either Nordic curls or a variation of Nordic curls on the glute ham raise machine. And that is what I should have always been doing. I've never had an injury in my hamstring when that has been in my programming. So it's a way to like train your hamstrings in a stretched position, similar to an RDL, but it's just body weight. And so even though it feels a bit painful, it feels like, oh, I could tear my hamstring. I've never got hurt when I've been doing them at the actual exercise, and I've never gotten hurt in any other training capacity while those have been in my program.